She said she'd never trust a black man with her life, words that poisoned the air between them just days before he stepped in front of a bullet to save her. Olivia Hart, white hotel heiress with a perfect image, never imagined her heart would betray her family's expectations for a man society deemed beneath her station. But when Marcus Reed's blood stained her designer dress that fateful night, something shattered inside her. Pride, prejudice, or perhaps the walls she'd built to keep real love at bay. As whispers spread through the hotel corridors and her mother's disapproving glances cut like knives, Olivia faces the ultimate choice: surrender to fear or stand openly with the man who risked everything for her. Subscribe now and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to choose between what others expect and what your heart demands. Because this story of forbidden love is about to show you what true courage really means. The morning sun bounced off the polished marble floors of the Hart Grand Hotel. Olivia Hart's heels clicked as she walked, clipboard in hand. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight bun, not a strand out of place. She wore a navy blue suit that meant business. "The dinner is in 6 hours," she said to Victor Lane, the head of hotel security. He was a tall man with salt and pepper hair who'd worked for the Hart family for 15 years. "I want every corner of this place checked twice." Victor nodded, making notes on his tablet. "We've added 2 more guards at the entrances, like you asked." Olivia stopped by the grand staircase, looking around with sharp eyes. "That man last week, the one who cornered me in the hallway. Do we know who he was?" "A former guest with a complaint. Claims he was overcharged." Victor's voice was calm, but his eyes showed concern. "We've banned him from the property." Olivia's shoulders tightened. "He was aggressive, Victor. He followed me from the restaurant to the office corridor." She took a deep breath. "I don't want anything like that happening again, especially not tonight." "I understand. That's why I've brought in some extra help." Victor checked his watch. "In fact, your new personal security should be arriving any minute." "Personal security?" Olivia frowned. "You mean a bodyguard? I don't need—" "After what happened, your mother agreed it was necessary. Just temporarily," Victor added quickly, seeing her expression. "He's ex-military, highly qualified, one of the best I've worked with." Olivia wanted to argue, but bit her tongue. The memory of that man's angry face just inches from hers, backing her against the wall, made her stomach knot. "Fine, for now." They finished the walkthrough of the main floor, checking sightlines and exit routes. Olivia made notes about the flower arrangements, too tall on the center tables, they'd block people's view, and reminded the staff about the special dietary restrictions for 2 of the investors. They stepped into the elevator to head up to her office. As the doors started to close, a hand caught the edge. The doors reopened. The man who stepped in was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark skin and closely cropped hair. He wore a well-fitted black suit, no tie, and had an earpiece that marked him as security. His face was handsome but serious, with eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Ms. Hart," Victor said, "this is Marcus Reed. He'll be handling your personal security." Marcus gave a slight nod. "Ma'am?" Olivia looked him over, her face carefully blank. "Mr. Reed." The elevator ride to the 3rd floor was silent and tense. When the doors opened again, Olivia stepped out first, heading straight for her office. The 2 men followed. Olivia's office was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. She set her clipboard on the glass desk and turned to Victor. "Walk me through tonight's plan." Victor pulled up a diagram on his tablet. "You'll greet guests in the main lobby from 6 mois to 6:30. Cocktail hour in the Palmetto Room until 7:15. Dinner in the Grand Ballroom at 7:30. Olivia nodded. "And the exits?" "Main doors, plus service corridors here, here, and here." Victor pointed to the map. Marcus will stay within 10 feet of you at all times. If there's any issue, he'll move you through the nearest exit to the secure room or vehicle. Marcus stood near the door, hands clasped in front of him, listening. Olivia paced behind her desk, anxiety making her movements sharp. Tonight's dinner was crucial. 12 potential investors who could fund the hotel's new wing. Everything had to be perfect. "I need to finish my notes," she said, sitting down at her computer. "We'll meet downstairs at 5:30. "Of course." Victor turned to leave. "Marcus will familiarize himself with your schedule and routes in the meantime." As the men headed for the door, Olivia felt a wave of frustration. She hated feeling vulnerable, hated that she needed protection. The memory of last week flashed again, the man's spittle hitting her face as he yelled, his finger jabbing toward her chest. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "I'd never trust a black man with my life." The words slipped out, quiet but clear in the silent room. She'd thought both men were already out the door. But Marcus was still there, just stepping through the doorway. His back stiffened slightly, the only sign he'd heard her. He didn't turn around, just continued walking out. Olivia's heart dropped to her stomach, her face flushed hot with shame. Had he heard? He must have. The words hung in the air like smoke. She sat frozen, hands hovering over her keyboard, horrified at what had just come out of her mouth. Where had that even come from? Some ugly whisper from her childhood? Something her father had said? Whatever it was, she'd never meant to say it out loud. Olivia stood, ready to follow him, to apologize. But what would she say? How could she take back words like that? She sank back into her chair, sick with shame. 10 minutes later, Olivia walked down the corridor toward the ballroom. Marcus was 15 feet ahead of her, speaking quietly into his radio, checking in with other security staff. His back was straight, his movements precise and professional. Olivia quickened her pace to catch up. "Mr. Reed?" He turned, his face unreadable. "Yes, Miss Hart." The words died in her throat. How could she possibly address what she'd said? The service entrance. I'd like to check it before the event." "Of course, this way." His voice was perfectly professional, giving away nothing. But as she followed him through the hotel, Olivia noticed how he kept more distance between them than before. How he spoke only when necessary. How his eyes never quite met hers. The afternoon crawled by in awkward silence. They checked every entrance, exit, and corridor. Marcus asked practical questions about the layout, about which guests might stay late, about her preferred routes through crowds. His questions were precise and focused solely on security. Olivia answered mechanically, the shame still burning in her chest. Several times she started to say something, to apologize, to explain. But the words wouldn't come. The more time passed, the harder it became. By late afternoon, they were finishing their security sweep. The sun was setting over the harbor, painting the hotel courtyard in golden light. Olivia lingered by the fountain, watching the water catch the fading sunlight. Marcus stood at a respectful distance, speaking quietly into his radio again. Olivia watched him from the corner of her eye. He was good at his job, thorough, observant, calm. And she had insulted him in the worst way, with words she didn't even mean. She opened her mouth to finally say something, but just then, the first guests began to arrive. The moment was lost. The investor reception was in full swing. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Olivia moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands, making introductions, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Marcus shadowed her discreetly, always present, but never intrusive. A few guests glanced at him curiously, but most hardly noticed him at all. Olivia was speaking with an older couple from Boston when she felt a hand at her elbow. She turned to find Grant Wallace, her ex-boyfriend, smiling down at her. He was tall and handsome in a classic way, with sandy hair and blue eyes, wearing an expensive suit that matched her navy blue dress a little too perfectly. "Olivia," he said, kissing her cheek, "you look stunning, as always." "Grant." She smiled politely. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Your mother invited me." His smile was confident, bordering on smug. She thought it might help put some of the investors at ease, familiar faces and all that. Olivia nodded, though inside she was irritated. Her mother was still holding out, hope that they would get back together, despite the fact that Olivia had ended things 6 months ago. Grant's eyes flickered to Marcus, who stood a few feet away, scanning the room. "New security?" he asked, his voice dropping slightly. "Yes, this is Marcus Reed," Olivia said. "Marcus, this is Grant Wallace." Marcus nodded politely. "Sir." Grant barely acknowledged him, turning back to Olivia. "Bit much for a dinner, isn't it? Having your own personal shadow?" "There was an incident last week," Olivia said stiffly. "Ah." Grant took a sip of his champagne. "Well, better safe than sorry, I suppose. Though you might want to consider the optics. Some of these investors are traditional." Olivia's jaw tightened. "I'm sure they're more concerned with our business proposal than my security arrangements." Grant shrugged. "Just looking out for you, darling." He glanced at Marcus again, this time with a dismissive little smile. "I'm sure he's very good at his job." The way he said it made it clear he saw Marcus as nothing more than hired help, not even worthy of being addressed directly. "He is," Olivia said, more sharply than she intended. "If you'll excuse me, I need to speak with the Harrises." As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself increasingly uncomfortable with Grant's behavior. He kept appearing at her side, steering conversations, placing a proprietary hand at her back. And each time he did, his attitude toward Marcus grew more dismissive. The dinner itself went smoothly. Olivia's presentation on the hotel's expansion plans was well received, and several investors expressed interest in moving forward. But by the end of the night, she was exhausted. From the event, from Grant's presence, and most of all, from the weight of her unspoken apology to Marcus. As the dinner broke up, Olivia spotted Grant headed her way again. Making a quick decision, she turned to Marcus. "I'd like to leave through the service corridor," she said quietly. "I've had enough small talk for one night." Marcus nodded, leading her toward a side door. They slipped out of the ballroom and into a quieter hallway, lined with paintings of Charleston harbor scenes. Their footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor. "I can have the car brought around to the service entrance," Marcus said, reaching for his radio. "Yes, please." Olivia hesitated, then added, "And thank you. For tonight." Marcus gave a small nod, his face still professionally neutral. He spoke briefly into his radio, requesting the car. They reached a service elevator that would take them down to the loading dock area. As they waited for it to arrive, Olivia gathered her courage. "Mr. Reed, Marcus, about what I said earlier." The elevator dinged, cutting her off. The doors slid open, and they stepped inside. Olivia took a deep breath, ready to try again, but Marcus's attention had shifted. He was frowning slightly, touching his earpiece. "Change of plan," he said, pressing the button for the ground floor, instead of the basement. "There's a situation near the loading dock. We'll exit through the east side instead." Olivia nodded, her apology once again pushed aside by circumstances. The night air was warm and humid as they stepped out into a narrow alley lit by sodium lights. It ran alongside the hotel, connecting the front street to the loading area at the back. "The car will meet us at the corner," Marcus said, his voice low. He was more alert now, his eyes scanning the shadows. They had walked only a few yards when a figure stepped out from behind a dumpster. Olivia froze. It was the man from last week, the one who had cornered her. Middle-aged, with thinning hair and an ill-fitting suit, his face flushed with anger. "Ms. Hart!" he called, his voice slurring slightly. "I've been trying to talk to you." Marcus immediately moved in front of Olivia, one hand reaching back to guide her behind him. "Sir, you need to leave the premises now." The man took a stumbling step forward. "I just want what's owed to me. Your hotel charged me twice, took money right out of my account." "Sir, if you have a billing issue, you can call customer service," Marcus said calmly. "Right now, you're trespassing." The man's face contorted with rage. "Customer service? I've called a dozen times. Nobody helps. Nobody listens." His hand plunged into his jacket pocket and emerged with a small pistol. Everything happened in seconds. Marcus shoved Olivia hard, sending her stumbling behind a concrete pillar. There was a crack of gunfire. Marcus grunted but stayed on his feet, still blocking the path between the gunman and Olivia. Security alarms began to wail. The man's eyes widened, suddenly seeming to realize what he'd done. He turned and ran, disappearing around the corner toward the street. Olivia stepped out from behind the pillar, shaking. "Marcus?" He was leaning against the wall, one hand pressed to his left shoulder. Even in the poor lighting, she could see the dark stains spreading across his white shirt. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice tight with pain. "Am I?" Olivia stared at him in disbelief. "You've been shot." Marcus slid down the wall to a sitting position. "Just the shoulder, not serious." Olivia rushed to him, kneeling beside him on the dirty pavement. She pulled off her silk scarf and pressed it against his wound. Her hands were shaking, becoming slick with his blood. "Victor!" she called out, hearing footsteps approaching. "Call an ambulance!" Victor appeared at the end of the alley, radio in hand, security staff behind him. "Already done. 2 minutes out." Olivia turned back to Marcus. His face was tight with pain, but his eyes were clear and focused on her. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please stay with me." In that moment, her earlier words echoed in her mind. I'd never trust a black man with my life, and the horrible irony of it crushed her. This man had just taken a bullet for her, without hesitation. And she hadn't even had the courage to apologize for her racist comment. "I'm sorry," she said, tears filling her eyes. "I'm so sorry." Marcus looked at her, understanding in his eyes. He gave a small nod before closing his eyes, his breathing shallow but steady. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The emergency room was bright and cold and smelled of antiseptic. Olivia sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, still wearing her evening dress, now stained with Marcus's blood. She'd refused to go home, despite the doctor's assurance that the bullet had gone through Marcus's shoulder without hitting anything vital. He would recover fully. It was past midnight. Olivia had given her statement to the police, who were still searching for the shooter. She'd called Marcus's emergency contact, his sister Tasha, and left a message with her number. The waiting room doors opened, and Olivia looked up to see her mother, Evelyn Hart, walking toward her. Behind her was Grant. Evelyn was in her 60s, but looked a decade younger, with carefully colored blonde hair and the same blue eyes as her daughter. She wore a concerned expression that didn't quite hide her disapproval. "Olivia, darling, you should be home resting." She sat beside her daughter, taking in the blood-stained dress with a slight grimace. "The police can handle this." "I'm not leaving," Olivia said firmly. "He's just doing his job," Grant said, standing over them. "That's what security is for." Olivia looked up at him, suddenly angry. "His name is Marcus, and he saved my life tonight." Grant raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Of course, and that's commendable, but—" "I'm staying," Olivia repeated. Evelyn sighed. "At least let me have someone bring you a change of clothes." Olivia nodded, too tired to argue further. "Thank you." After her mother and Grant finally left, promising to return in the morning, Olivia approached the nurse's station. "Is there any update on Marcus Reed?" The nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, nodded. "He's out of surgery and in recovery. Family only right now, but—" She glanced at Olivia's blood-stained dress. "I can give you 5 minutes. Room 215. "Thank you," Olivia whispered. The recovery room was dim and quiet, filled with the soft beeping of monitors. Marcus lay still on the bed, his shoulder heavily bandaged, an IV in his arm. Olivia moved quietly to his bedside, setting her phone to silent before pulling up a chair. She sat there watching the rise and fall of his chest, the events of the day replaying in her mind. The horrible words she'd said. His professionalism despite her insult. The moment he'd pushed her to safety without a second thought. "I'm so sorry," she whispered again to his sleeping form, guilt and gratitude tangling in her chest. Early morning light filtered through the blinds when Olivia heard footsteps entering the room. She looked up to see a young black woman in scrubs standing in the doorway. She had the same eyes as Marcus, warm brown with long lashes, but her expression was wary. "You must be Tasha," Olivia said, standing. "And you're Olivia Hart." Tasha's voice was cool, but not hostile. "The nurse said you've been here all night." Olivia nodded. "I couldn't leave." Tasha moved to the other side of the bed, checking the monitors with a professional eye. "The doctor says he'll be fine. Clean wound, no major damage." "Thank God," Olivia breathed. Tasha studied her for a moment, then asked quietly, "Why are you really here, Miss Hart? Guilt? Duty?" Olivia swallowed hard. The question deserved honesty. "Both, I suppose. And I need to apologize to him. Properly." "Apologize for what?" Olivia felt her face grow hot with shame. "Yesterday, before all this happened, I said something terrible. Something racist. I thought he couldn't hear me, but he did." She looked up at Tasha. "I said I'd never trust a black man with my life." Tasha's face hardened, but Olivia continued. "I don't even know why I said it. It's not what I believe, not really. I was stressed and scared about this man who'd threatened me, and—" She shook her head. "There's no excuse. And then Marcus took a bullet for me, and all I could think was how wrong I was. How horrible." Tasha was quiet for a long moment, her eyes on her brother. "He told me about the job," she said finally. "Said his new client was uptight but professional. That was all." "He didn't tell you what I said?" "No." Tasha's gaze returned to Olivia, softening slightly. "That says something about him." Before Olivia could respond, Marcus stirred. Both women turned to him as his eyes fluttered open, blinking against the light. Tasha leaned in. "Hey, big brother, how you feeling?" "Like I got shot," he mumbled, voice rough. His eyes focused, taking in the room, then landing on Olivia. "You're still here." Something in his tone, surprise, maybe even a hint of warmth, made Olivia's heart skip. She stepped closer to the bed. "I'm here," she said softly. Tasha moved back slightly, giving them a moment. Marcus looked at Olivia, his eyes tired but clear. For the first time since they'd met, he truly seemed to see her. Not as his client, but as a person. In that hospital room, with morning light spilling across the floor and the steady beep of monitors marking time, something shifted between them. A door that had been closed by careless words began ever so slightly to open again. The doctor arrived an hour later, clipboard in hand. He was a middle-aged man with round glasses and a quick smile. "Good news, Mr. Reed," he said, checking the chart. "The bullet went clean through. No major arteries or bones hit. With some physical therapy, you should regain full mobility." Marcus nodded, relief visible on his face. "When can I leave?" "I'd like to keep you until this afternoon for observation, but then you're free to go. Light duty only for at least 2 weeks, though, and you'll need to wear this." The doctor held up a shoulder sling. "Keep the arm stable while it heals." After the doctor left, a nurse came to help Marcus sit up and adjust his pillows. Tasha stepped into the hallway to make a call to their parents. Olivia found herself alone with Marcus for the first time since the shooting. She stood awkwardly by the window, unsure what to say. The apology she'd been rehearsing all night suddenly seemed small and inadequate. Marcus saved her the trouble. "Ms. Hart," he said quietly, "you should go home and rest. You've been here all night." "I couldn't leave," she admitted. "Not until I knew you were okay." He studied her, his dark eyes thoughtful. "Thank you for staying." Olivia moved closer to the bed. "Marcus, about what I said yesterday, in my office." He held up a hand to stop her. "Let's not do this here." "But I need to tell you how sorry—" "I know." His voice was gentle but firm. "I can see that. But a hospital bed isn't the place for this conversation." Olivia nodded, understanding. This wasn't just about her need to apologize. It was about his dignity, too. "Will you still work with me?" she asked quietly. "After you recover, I mean?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You trust me with your safety," he finally said. "That's clear. But can you trust me enough to really see me? Not just as security, but as a person?" The question hit Olivia hard. It was exactly what she deserved to be asked. "I'd like the chance to try," she answered honestly. Marcus nodded slowly. "Then yes, I'll continue. Temporarily." Tasha returned, eyebrows raised at finding them in what seemed like an intense conversation. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Marcus said. "Just discussing when I can return to work." "Return to—" Tasha began, then shook her head. "You're unbelievable. You got shot yesterday." "Just a graze," he said with a small smile. "A graze that needed surgery," she corrected, but there was affection in her voice. "Anyway, Mom and Dad send their love. They wanted to drive down, but I told them you're fine." Olivia checked her watch, realizing she needed to get back to the hotel. There would be police reports, questions from staff, and damage control with the investors who might have heard about the incident. "I should go," she said, "but I'll have a car waiting when you're discharged this afternoon." "Thank you," Marcus said. Then, with a glance at his sister, he added, "But Tasha can drive me home. She's a nurse here, actually." "Oh." Olivia looked at Tasha with new understanding. "I didn't realize. Well, that's good. You're in excellent hands then." Tasha's expression softened slightly. "He's a terrible patient, but I'll manage him." As Olivia turned to leave, she paused at the door. "I'll see you soon, Marcus. When you're ready." 3 days later, Marcus returned to the Hart Grand Hotel on light duty. His left arm was in a sling, and he moved more carefully than before, but his eyes were as alert and observant as ever. Victor had set up a temporary security office for him near Olivia's, where he could review protocols and suggest improvements without the physical strain of following her everywhere. Olivia stopped by mid-morning, knocking lightly on the open door. "How are you feeling?" Marcus looked up from his computer. "Better, thank you." He was dressed in a navy suit, crisp white shirt open at the collar. The sling made him look somehow more human, less like the perfect professional she'd first met. "I've been reviewing the security footage from that night," he said. turning the monitor so she could see. There are some blind spots in the service corridors we should address. Olivia nodded, stepping into the room. Whatever you recommend, we'll implement. I'd like to add cameras here and here, he said, pointing to a diagram, and change the access protocol for the loading dock after hours. Done, she said without hesitation. Marcus looked at her, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Before, she might have questioned his suggestions or pushed back on the cost. Her easy agreement was new. A small, tentative respect began to build between them as they discussed the security upgrades. Olivia listened carefully to his recommendations, asking thoughtful questions. Marcus explained his reasoning clearly, drawing on his military experience without being condescending. By late afternoon, they had a solid plan in place. As Olivia was preparing to leave, she hesitated in the doorway. The staff has been asking about you, she said. They heard what happened. They're impressed. Marcus shrugged his good shoulder. Just doing my job. No, Olivia said quietly. It was more than that. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something warm passed between them. Then the elevator dinged down the hall, breaking the moment. Good night, Marcus, she said. Good night, Ms. Hart. Olivia, she corrected gently. Please call me Olivia. The next morning, Marcus was waiting by the hotel entrance when Olivia's car pulled up. She was surprised to see him there. I thought you were on desk duty, she said as she stepped out of the car. Light duty, he corrected. I can still walk and talk. Thought I'd ride up with you, go over today's schedule. They stepped into the elevator together. As the doors closed, Olivia noticed Marcus shifting his shoulders slightly, adjusting the sling. Is your sister helping with your recovery? She asked. Marcus nodded. Tasha's got me doing exercises already. She's working a double shift today at the hospital. She seems dedicated, Olivia said. You're lucky to have her. We look out for each other. There was warmth in his voice when he spoke of his sister. Always have, since we were kids. What was that like? Olivia asked. Growing up with a sister close in age? The question seemed to surprise him. It was the first personal thing she'd asked. Good. Noisy. A small smile touched his lips. Our place was small, and Tasha talks a lot. But we had each other's backs. That sounds nice, Olivia said softly. What about you? Any siblings? She shook her head. No, just me and my parents. And after my father died, just me and my mother. I'm sorry, he said. Olivia shrugged. It was a long time ago. I was 12. The elevator reached her floor and they stepped out together. As they walked toward her office, Marcus asked, Is your team still doing after-action reviews? From your military days? She glanced at him, curious about the question. Yes. After every major operation, we'd break down what went well and what didn't. It was a way to learn, improve. Sounds useful. It was. He paused, then shared something he hadn't planned to. There was this one time in Afghanistan, we were escorting a diplomat. Everything went wrong. Vehicle broke down, comms failed. But the team improvised, got everyone out safely. Olivia listened, genuinely interested. What did you learn from that? Trust your training, but be ready to adapt. His eyes met hers. And sometimes the people you least expect end up being the ones you count on most. The conversation felt different from their previous exchanges, more personal, more real. As they reached her office, Olivia realized she'd been listening not just to his words, but to the way he said them, the expressions that crossed his face. Thank you for sharing that, she said. Marcus nodded, suddenly seeming aware that he'd opened up more than usual. I'll check the conference room before your 10 o'clock, he said, shifting back to professional mode. Marcus, Olivia called as he started to walk away. Would you like to have lunch later, in my office? We could go over the rest of the week's schedule. He considered for a moment, then nodded. I'd like that. During her lunch break, Olivia found herself reaching for her phone. She hesitated, then typed out a text message to Tasha Reed. Thank you for trusting me at the hospital. I won't forget it. She hit send before she could change her mind. She didn't expect a response, but a few minutes later, her phone buzzed. Take care of my brother. He takes care of everyone else. Olivia stared at the message, feeling the weight of trust being cautiously extended to her. 2 days later, Evelyn Hart hosted a small dinner at her penthouse apartment above the hotel. It was meant to be a thank you for Marcus, though Olivia suspected her mother had other motives as well. It's just a small gesture of appreciation, Evelyn had said, for his service above and beyond duty. Olivia had been surprised when Marcus accepted the invitation. Even more surprised when she arrived to find that Grant was also there. The penthouse was elegantly decorated in creams and blues, with a wall of windows overlooking the harbor. Evelyn greeted Marcus warmly, though her eyes lingered on his sling with poorly disguised concern. Mr. Reed, how wonderful to see you recovering so well, she said, guiding him to a seat at the dining table. We're all so grateful for your quick action that night. Thank you, Mrs. Hart, Marcus replied politely. I appreciate the invitation. Grant arrived a few minutes later, kissing Evelyn on the cheek before turning to Olivia. His smile faltered slightly when he saw Marcus. Ah, the hero of the hour, he said, his tone just a touch too jovial. Feeling better, I hope? Much better, thank you, Marcus said evenly. Throughout dinner, Olivia couldn't help noticing the subtle dynamics at play. Her mother was polite to Marcus, but kept steering the conversation toward topics that excluded him. Family friends, private clubs, vacations in places Marcus had likely never been. Grant was worse, making comments about staying in one's lane and the importance of proper optics in business. The investors were quite concerned after the incident, Grant said, swirling his wine. I assured them it was being handled discreetly. The investors were concerned about my safety, I'm sure, Olivia said, her voice tight. Of course, darling. But also about the hotel's reputation. A shooting on the property isn't exactly good press. No one is more concerned about the hotel's reputation than I am, Olivia said. But I'm more concerned about the fact that someone brought a gun onto our property and fired it at a staff member. Marcus remained composed throughout, answering questions when directly addressed, but mostly observing. His calm dignity in the face of Grant's thinly veiled condescension only made Olivia more aware of her own silence. She should say something. Defend Marcus. Call out the subtle jabs. But each time she opened her mouth, the words wouldn't come. The weight of her mother's expectations, of Grant's assumption that she shared his views, held her back. As the evening drew to a close, Olivia found herself on the balcony with Marcus. The night air was warm and humid, carrying the scent of the harbor. Thank you for coming tonight, she said quietly. I know it probably wasn't very comfortable. Marcus looked out at the city lights. You apologized to me, he said gently. But you're still silent with them. The simple observation hit her like a physical blow. He was right. She'd apologized to him in private but lacked the courage to stand up for him in public. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have said something. It's not my place to tell you what to say to your family, Marcus replied. But if you want me to believe your apology was real, your actions need to match your words. He wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. He was just stating a truth she already knew but had been avoiding. As they drove back to the hotel in silence, Olivia felt something shifting inside her. The shame was still there, but now it was mixed with a determination to do better, to be better. The next afternoon, Olivia was walking with Marcus through a service corridor, discussing changes to the security protocols, when his sling slipped slightly. Without thinking, she reached out to adjust it, her fingers brushing against his shoulder. "Here, let me—" As she straightened the strap, a flash caught her eye. A hotel guest at the end of the corridor had raised their phone, snapping a picture. Olivia stepped back quickly, but the damage was done. The guest hurried away, already looking down at their phone. "That's not good," Marcus said quietly. "It's fine," Olivia insisted, but her stomach knotted with worry. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. By evening, the picture was circulating in staff group chats. The hotel heiress with her hands on her black bodyguard's shoulder, their faces close together. The caption someone had added was suggestive. "The real reason for the new security detail?" Victor showed Olivia the image on his tablet. "It's mostly contained to staff right now, but I thought you should know." The photo was blurry and could easily be misinterpreted. In it, Olivia's face was turned up toward Marcus, her expression earnest. His head was bent toward hers, listening. It looked intimate. "It was innocent," Olivia said, her face hot. "I was fixing his sling." "I know that," Victor assured her. "But people love to gossip, especially about the boss." Olivia sighed, rubbing her temples. "How far has this spread?" "Just staff so far, but—" "But what?" Victor hesitated. "Your mother called me about it 20 minutes ago." Olivia closed her eyes briefly. Of course she did. Sure enough, Evelyn appeared in Olivia's office an hour later, her face a mask of concerned disapproval. "Darling," she said, closing the door behind her. "We need to talk." Olivia steeled herself. "About the photo? It's nothing, Mother. I was adjusting his sling." "That's not how it looks." Evelyn's voice was tight. "And it doesn't matter what was really happening. It matters what people think was happening. Since when do we care what the staff gossips about?" "Since some of our most conservative investors started asking questions." Evelyn sat down across from Olivia. "Several board members have called me today. They're concerned." "About what? That I was helping an injured employee?" "About appearances." Evelyn leaned forward. "Olivia, you know I've always tried to be progressive. Your father and I raised you to judge people by their character, not their color." "But," Olivia said, sensing where this was headed. "But the hotel business is complicated. Many of our investors and guests are from different generations. They have certain expectations." "Racist expectations?" Olivia said flatly. Evelyn flinched at the word. "I'm just asking you to be more careful. To consider the hotel's reputation. Your reputation." Olivia stared at her mother, seeing clearly for the first time the carefully hidden prejudice behind her polite concern. It wasn't hate or fear. It was something more insidious. The belief that some lines shouldn't be crossed, some boundaries kept in place, for appearance's sake. "I'll keep that in mind," Olivia said coolly. After her mother left, Olivia sat at her desk, staring at the blurry photo on her tablet. Was she really developing feelings for Marcus? Or was this just guilt and gratitude mixed with attraction? She didn't know. But she did know that her mother's concern made her angry in a way she hadn't expected, and that seeing Marcus through others' judgmental eyes made her want to defend him, to know him better. She picked up her phone, intending to text him, then put it down again. What would she even say? "Sorry my mother thinks you're bad for business? Sorry our innocent moment is being twisted into gossip?" She drafted a message, then deleted it, then another, and deleted that too. Finally, she set the phone down, falling asleep on her couch with thoughts of Marcus and duty and prejudice swirling in her mind. The next evening, Olivia sat in her living room, phone in hand. After a day of uncomfortable glances and whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, she'd had enough. She dialed Grant's number, needing to set some boundaries. He answered on the second ring. "Olivia, I was hoping you'd call." "We need to talk," she said. "About dinner the other night? I thought it went well." "Not about dinner, about us. About the fact that there is no us anymore, Grant." There was a pause on the other end. "Is this about the picture? The one with your bodyguard?" So he'd seen it too. Of course he had. "No," she said firmly. "This is about you acting like we're still together when we're not. It's about you undermining me with investors and making snide comments about my staff." "Your staff?" Grant's voice took on a condescending tone. "Is that what we're calling him now?" "His name is Marcus, and yes, he works for me, that's all." "Come on, Olivia. It's a phase. We all go through them. Don't throw away your future on some adventure." The implication in his voice made her skin crawl. "My future is not with you, Grant. It never was." "He's using you, you know," Grant said, his voice hardening. "Men like him always do. They see a wealthy white woman and think opportunity." Olivia's hand tightened on the phone. She wanted to lash out, to defend Marcus against these ugly assumptions. But something held her back. Not fear this time, but the realization that Grant wasn't worth the energy. He would never understand. "I'm done with this conversation," she said instead. "And I'm done with us, Grant. For good. Please respect that." She hung up before he could respond, her heart pounding. It felt good to set that boundary, to make it clear to Grant that they had no future. But she was troubled by his assumptions about Marcus, and by her own reluctance to forcefully defend him. Was she still afraid? Or was she unsure of her own feelings? She began typing a message to Marcus, then deleted it again. What she wanted to say couldn't be said in a text. It needed to be in person, when she was sure of what she was feeling. She fell asleep on the couch, phone still in hand, confused thoughts of Marcus and courage and change following her into dreams. The next day brought a surprise. Tasha called, inviting Olivia to bring a casserole to Marcus's apartment that evening. "He won't admit it, but he could use some home cooking," Tasha said. "And I think you two need to talk somewhere that isn't a hospital or a hotel." Olivia agreed immediately, both nervous and eager at the chance to see Marcus in his own space. She ordered a chicken casserole from the hotel kitchen, then reconsidered and made a simple one herself. It wasn't fancy, she rarely cooked, but it was made with care. Marcus's apartment was in a modest 3-story building, about 20 minutes from the hotel. The neighborhood was working class, but well kept, with small yards and older cars parked along the street. Olivia felt out of place as she walked up to the building, casserole dish in hand. She was used to penthouses and country clubs, not walk-up apartments with cracked sidewalks. But there was something genuine about the place that appealed to her. As she approached the front steps, a group of children raced past, laughing. They waved to Marcus, who was sitting on the steps, his arm still in its sling. He waved back with a smile that Olivia had rarely seen at the hotel, relaxed, unguarded. He stood when he saw her coming. "Olivia, you made it." "I brought dinner," she said, holding up the dish. "I hope that's okay." "More than okay. Come on up." As they walked up to the 3rd floor, neighbors called out greetings to Marcus. He introduced Olivia simply as a friend from work, but she noticed the curious glances. Word traveled fast in small communities too, it seemed. His apartment was smaller than she'd expected, but neat and comfortable, with simple furniture and a few framed photographs. A struggling plant sat on the windowsill, its leaves slightly drooping. "Tasha's on her way," Marcus said, taking the casserole. "She got held up at the hospital." Olivia nodded. looking around with interest. There were books on a small shelf. Military history, a few mysteries, some science fiction. A chess set was laid out on a side table, a game in progress. It was a bachelor's apartment, but a homey one. "You have a nice place," she said, meaning it. Marcus smiled slightly. "It's small, but it works for me." "How's the shoulder?" she asked, noticing how he favored his right arm. "Better every day. Tasha's a tough physical therapist." There was an awkward moment of silence. They'd spent so much time together in professional settings that being alone in his personal space felt different, more intimate. Tasha arrived 15 minutes later, bringing a bottle of wine and an energy that filled the small apartment. She was warmer toward Olivia than she had been at the hospital, asking about the hotel and telling funny stories about Marcus as a kid. During dinner, Olivia found herself relaxing. The food wasn't fancy, the plates didn't match, and they ate at a small kitchen table instead of a formal dining room. But there was laughter and real conversation, without the tension and judgment she so often felt at her mother's dinners. After they ate, Tasha pulled Olivia aside while Marcus was taking a call from their parents in the bedroom. "Can I ask you something?" Tasha said, her voice low. "Of course." "Is this guilt or care?" The question was direct, challenging. Olivia appreciated the honesty. "At first, it was guilt," she admitted. "But now, I don't know. I want the chance to prove it's care." Tasha studied her face, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough?" When Marcus returned, they moved to the small living room. Tasha soon excused herself, claiming an early shift the next day, though Olivia suspected she was giving them space to talk. After she left, Marcus and Olivia sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The window was open, letting in the sounds of the neighborhood. Distant music, children playing, the occasional car passing. "Your plant is dying," Olivia said, nodding toward the windowsill. Marcus chuckled. "Yeah, Tasha keeps trying to save it. I'm not much of a gardener." "Too much water," Olivia said, moving to examine it. "The soil should dry out between waterings." "You garden?" She shook her head. "No, but I killed enough plants to learn that much." They both laughed, and something in the air between them softened. "Thank you for coming tonight," Marcus said. "I know this isn't what you're used to." "I like it," Olivia said honestly. "It feels real." Their eyes met, and Olivia felt a flutter in her chest. There was something happening between them, something neither had expected. She saw it in his eyes, too, a warmth that went beyond professional courtesy or even friendship. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "It's getting late." Marcus walked her to the door. "I'll walk you down to the car." "You don't have to. Professional habit," he said with a small smile. "Always see people safely to their transportation." The night air was cool as they stepped outside. A few neighbors were still out, sitting on porches or working on cars. They nodded to Marcus, giving Olivia curious glances. At the curb where her car waited, Olivia turned to face him. "Thank you for dinner, and for letting me see this part of your life. Thank you for the casserole, and for coming into my world for a change." They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to end the evening. Then, almost without thinking, Olivia leaned up and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Marcus looked surprised but not displeased. His eyes searched hers, asking a question neither was quite ready to answer. "Good night, Marcus," she said softly. "Good night, Olivia." As her car pulled away, Olivia touched her lips, heart racing. What was she doing? And why did it feel so right? The next day was busy with meetings and preparations for a weekend event. Olivia and Marcus saw each other only briefly, in professional settings with others present. But there was a new awareness between them, an electricity that hadn't been there before. By early evening, They found themselves alone on the pier behind the hotel. The sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, his voice serious. Olivia tensed, worried he was about to set a boundary, to tell her last night had been a mistake. "What is it?" "When I was growing up, people often saw me as just a body, athletic, strong, useful, not a mind or a heart." He looked out at the water. "In the military, it was the same in many ways. And in security work, I'm hired to be a shield, a weapon if needed." Olivia listened, beginning to understand something fundamental about him. "It wears on you," he continued. "Being seen as a function, not a person." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I did the same thing when we met." He nodded. "Yes, but you're seeing differently now. I can feel it." Olivia took a deep breath. "My whole life, I've been the heart heiress. People see the name, the money, the hotel. They don't see me." She gave a small, sad laugh. "It's not the same, I know. Different kinds of boxes, different kinds of judgment." "Both can be lonely," Marcus said gently. They stood side by side, watching the last light fade from the sky. Their hands were inches apart on the railing. "Marcus," Olivia said softly, "I think I'm—" Before she could finish, he turned to her. Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the barriers between them, race, class, employer, and employee, seemed to fall away. They were just two people, seeing each other clearly for perhaps the first time. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Marcus leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, a question as much as a statement. Olivia answered by kissing him back, her hand coming up to rest against his cheek. When they pulled apart, both looked slightly startled, but they were smiling. "We should take this slow," Marcus said, his voice husky. "Yes," Olivia agreed. "Slow is good." They walked back to the hotel together, not touching, but feeling connected all the same. Something had changed between them, something neither could turn back from now, even if they wanted to. The next morning, Olivia felt lighter than she had in months. There was a brightness in her step, a warmth in her chest that hadn't been there before. She was falling for Marcus, maybe had been since the moment he stepped in front of that bullet for her. She was at her desk when Victor knocked on her door. "Got a minute?" "Of course. What's up?" Victor closed the door behind him, looking uncomfortable. "The rumors are getting worse, about you and Marcus." Olivia sighed. "I figured they would. It might be wise to be discreet, for a while at least." She thought about that, about hiding whatever was growing between her and Marcus. It didn't feel right. "I appreciate the concern, Victor, but I'm not interested in hiding. Not anymore." Victor studied her face, then nodded. "I understand. Just be prepared. Not everyone will see it the way you do." "I know." After he left, Olivia sat thinking about what lay ahead. There would be whispers, judgments, maybe even real consequences for the hotel. Her mother would be upset. Grant would be vindictive. But for the first time, she didn't care as much as she thought she would. She was still lost in thought when the door opened again. This time, it was Grant, with her mother right behind him. "Olivia," Grant said, his voice tight with barely contained anger. "We need to talk." Evelyn closed the door, her face a mask of worry. "It's about the rumors, darling. They're getting out of control." Olivia straightened in her chair. "What rumors exactly?" "That you and that security guard, Marcus, are—" Grant couldn't even finish the sentence. "That you're becoming romantically involved," Evelyn finished, her voice strained. The board is concerned, Olivia. This could affect investments, our reputation. He's using you, Grant said, leaning on her desk. Can't you see that? Men like him see women like you and think meal ticket. He's angling for something. Money, position, who knows what. Olivia felt anger rising in her chest. These were the same ugly assumptions he'd made on the phone. But now, faced with both him and her mother, she felt a moment of fear. What if they were right? What if she was being naive? You don't know him, she said, but her voice was uncertain. And you do? After what? A week? 2? Grant scoffed. This is a phase, Olivia. A reaction to the stress of the shooting. It's nothing serious. It's nothing serious, Olivia repeated, the words coming out before she could think them through. It's just... I don't know. It's not what you think. Too late, she realized Marcus was standing in the doorway behind Grant, a report in his hand. Their eyes met over Grant's shoulder, and Olivia saw the moment her words registered. His face, usually so controlled, showed a flash of hurt before shuddering into professional blankness. He nodded once, a sharp, formal gesture, then turned and walked away. Marcus, wait! Olivia stood, reaching out, but he kept walking. In that moment, with her mother and Grant watching, Olivia realized she'd done exactly what she'd promised herself she wouldn't do again. She'd been silent when she should have spoken up. Worse, she'd denied her feelings for Marcus out of fear and uncertainty. The shame of it burned in her chest, hotter and more painful than before. Because this time, she hadn't just hurt herself. She'd hurt someone she was coming to care for deeply, and she had no idea how to make it right. Marcus walked down the hotel corridor, his back straight, his face calm. Only the tightness around his eyes showed how much Olivia's words had hurt him. He'd heard enough. It's nothing serious. Those 3 words echoed in his head, mocking him for believing there could be something real between them. He'd been a fool. Despite everything, her racist comment that first day, her silence at her mother's dinner, the way she kept their connection hidden in public, he'd started to believe she was different, that she saw him, the real him. But when faced with disapproval from her mother and that smug ex-boyfriend, she dismissed whatever was growing between them as nothing. A passing phase. An amusement, perhaps. Marcus headed straight for the security office where Victor was reviewing camera footage. Got a minute? Marcus asked, his voice carefully neutral. Victor looked up, concern crossing his face. Sure, what's up? Marcus closed the door behind him and sat down. I need to resign. Resign? Victor set down his coffee. Why? Is it the shoulder? Because we can extend your light duty. It's not the shoulder. Marcus looked Victor in the eye. I can protect Ms. Hart from danger. I can't be her embarrassment. Understanding dawned on Victor's face. Ah, the rumors. I heard her talking to her mother and Mr. Wallace just now. She made it clear whatever she thought was happening between us was nothing serious. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. Victor sighed. Look, Marcus, office politics in this place are complicated. Maybe she was just... I know exactly what she was doing, Marcus cut in. And I don't blame her, but I can't work like this. After a long moment, Victor nodded. I understand. I'll process the paperwork. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I think she cares about you, more than she's ready to admit. Maybe, Marcus said, but that's not enough. He wrote out his resignation letter, short and professional. 2 weeks' notice, though he had enough vacation days to cover it if they preferred he leave immediately. He made no mention of personal feelings or the real reason he was leaving. At the bottom, he added a brief postscript. Thank you for the opportunity. I wish you well. Marcus. After leaving the letter on Olivia's desk, He cleaned out his temporary office. There wasn't much to take, just a few personal items and his security credentials. He'd turn those into Victor before leaving. As he packed up, Marcus tried to make sense of the ache in his chest. He'd known Olivia Hart for just over a week. How had she gotten under his skin so quickly? Was it the intensity of the situation? The shooting? The hospital? The vulnerability they'd shown each other? Or was it something more? Whatever it was over now. Time to move on. Olivia sat at her desk, staring at Marcus's resignation letter. The office was quiet, the last of the day staff having gone home. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky. She'd been sitting there for nearly an hour, reading those few professional lines over and over, as if they might somehow change. As if they might contain some hint that he didn't really want to leave. But there was nothing, just a formal resignation, polite and impersonal. As if the kiss on the pier had never happened. As if she hadn't seen his face when she said those stupid, cowardly words to Grant and her mother. It's nothing serious. Why had she said that? Fear, yes. Uncertainty, maybe. But was that really worth losing him? Olivia pressed her hands to her face, forcing back tears. This was her fault. She'd hurt him, not once, but twice. First with a thoughtless, racist comment, and now with a deliberate denial of their connection. The second was worse somehow, because this time she'd known better. She'd known how it would land. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother, probably calling to continue their earlier conversation. Olivia ignored it, slipping the phone back into her pocket. A knock at her door made her look up. Victor stood there, his expression kind but serious. "Can I come in?" She nodded, wiping quickly at her eyes. Victor closed the door and sat across from her. "I take it you found his letter?" "Yes." Her voice was hollow. "He's a good man," Victor said simply. "One of the best I've worked with." "I know." Olivia looked at the letter again. "I messed up, Victor. I was a coward." "Yes," he agreed, surprising her. "You were." She looked up, not used to such direct criticism from her staff. "But," Victor continued, "we all mess up sometimes. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? He's leaving." "That's not what I asked." Victor leaned forward. "Olivia, I've known you since you were a teenager. You've always been strong-willed, determined. When you want something, you go after it. This is different. Is it? Or are you just scared?" Olivia bristled. "Of course I'm scared. My mother's upset, the board is watching, Grant is spreading his poison." "No," Victor interrupted gently. "That's not what you're afraid of. Not really." She fell silent, knowing he was right. The real fear was deeper. It was the fear of being truly seen, truly known. The fear of letting someone in who might change how she saw herself, how she saw the world. The fear of loving someone who came from a different world than hers, and what that might mean for both of them. "You know what you want," Victor said quietly. "Are you willing to stand in it?" The question hung in the air between them. Simple, but profound. Was she willing to stand in her truth, even if it was uncomfortable? Even if it changed things? Slowly, Olivia nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "I am." Victor smiled. "Good. Then it's time to start making things right." The next morning, Olivia called Grant from her apartment. Her hands were steady, her voice calm. "We need to talk," she said when he answered. "Olivia?" He sounded smug. "I'm glad you're being sensible about this. I was thinking dinner tonight." "No, Grant, this isn't about getting back together. This is goodbye." There was a pause on the other end. "What are you talking about?" "I'm ending things between us. For good." She took a deep breath. I don't love you, Grant. I don't think I ever did. Is this about that security guard? His voice turned cold. Because I've been hearing things, Olivia. People are talking. His name is Marcus, she said firmly. And yes, it's partly about him, but it's mostly about me, about who I want to be. You're making a mistake, Grant warned. Your mother agrees with me. The board will never accept this, whatever it is you think you're doing. Maybe not, but I'm not asking for their permission. He's using you, Grant insisted, his voice rising. Can't you see that? Stop. Olivia's voice was steel. You don't know him, and you clearly don't know me either if you think I'd let anyone use me. Grant scoffed. This is a phase. You'll come to your senses. Goodbye, Grant. She hung up, her hands finally starting to shake, but it was done. One step toward being the person she wanted to be. Next, she needed to talk to her mother. That conversation would be harder. Evelyn's sitting room was elegant and formal, with antique furniture and views of the harbor through tall windows. Late afternoon light streamed in, warming the cream-colored walls. Olivia sat across from her mother, a cup of untouched tea on the table between them. I'm worried about you, darling, Evelyn said, her voice gentle but firm. Your behavior lately has been concerning. I'm fine, Mother. Better than fine, actually. I'm finally starting to figure things out. Is that what you call this situation with your bodyguard? Figuring things out? Olivia set down her cup. His name is Marcus, Mom. And yes, partly. He's helped me see some things more clearly. Evelyn's lips thinned. This is about your father, isn't it? Some kind of rebellion against his memory? What? Olivia was genuinely confused. No, this has nothing to do with Dad. Then why? Evelyn leaned forward, frustration breaking through her polished exterior. Why would you risk everything, your reputation, the hotel's standing, our family name, for some infatuation? It's not an infatuation. Olivia met her mother's gaze steadily. And I'm not risking everything. I'm just being honest about how I feel. And how exactly do you feel? I care about him. The admission was simpler than she'd expected. I like who I am when I'm with him, and I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not to make other people comfortable. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I'm afraid for you, Olivia. Not just for your reputation, for your heart. What do you mean? People will judge you. Both of you. They'll say cruel things, make assumptions. They might pull their business from the hotel. Your friends might drift away. Are you ready for that? Olivia considered this. I don't know, she answered honestly. But I do know that I'm not happy living by other people's rules anymore. I've spent my whole life trying not to disappoint you and Dad, trying to be the perfect heart heiress. But that's not all of who I am. Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, surprising them both. I never wanted you to feel that way, she said softly. I just wanted to protect you. I know. Olivia reached across the table, taking her mother's hand. But sometimes protection feels like a cage. I need to make my own choices, even if they're mistakes. And this man, Marcus, is he worth it? Olivia thought about Marcus's steady presence, his quiet dignity in the face of prejudice, the way he looked at her, really saw her. I think he might be, she said. But even if it doesn't work out between us, I need to try. I need to be brave enough to follow my heart for once. Evelyn squeezed her hand. Your father would have had a fit, she said with a watery smile. But I won't stand in your way. I can't promise to understand or to always say the right things. But you're my daughter, and I love you. Relief washed over Olivia. She hadn't expected her mother's blessing, and she hadn't really gotten it. But this was enough. This was a start. "Thank you," she said, tears in her own eyes now. "That means everything." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, mother and daughter sat together, beginning to bridge a gap that had existed between them for years. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't be easy, but it was honest. And for now, that was enough. The walk to Marcus's apartment building felt both shorter and longer than it had before. Olivia had changed into simple clothes, jeans, a blouse, flat shoes, and pulled her hair back in a loose ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, just Olivia. Her heart pounded as she climbed the stairs to the third floor. What would she say to him? What if he wouldn't listen? What if she was too late? When she reached his door, she stood there for a long moment, gathering her courage. Then she knocked. Tasha answered, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of Olivia. "I thought you might show up," she said. "Is he here?" Olivia asked. Tasha nodded. "Come in." Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table, looking over some papers. He looked up when Olivia entered, his expression guarded. "Olivia," he said, his voice neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you, to talk to you." She glanced at Tasha, who was hovering nearby. "Both of you, actually?" Tasha raised an eyebrow, but pulled out a chair and sat down. Marcus remained where he was, watching Olivia carefully. "I came to apologize," Olivia said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "To both of you, but especially to you, Marcus." She took a deep breath and continued, meeting his eyes. "What I said in my office yesterday was wrong. It was a lie, and I knew it when I said it. I was scared, of my mother's disapproval, of Grant's judgment, of what people would think. But that's no excuse." She turned to Tasha. "I also want to apologize to you. Your brother is an extraordinary man who saved my life and showed me kindness I didn't deserve. And I repaid that by being a coward, by denying what I was feeling, because it was easier than standing up to people who don't see him the way I do." Tasha's expression softened slightly. "Go on." Olivia looked back at Marcus, her eyes filling with tears she didn't try to hide. "I'm sorry for that first day, when I said that horrible thing about not trusting a black man with my life. I'm sorry for staying silent at dinner when my mother and Grant were being condescending. And I'm so sorry for yesterday, when I denied that what's happening between us matters to me." She wiped at her tears. "Because it does matter. You matter. And I'm not asking for anything in return. I just needed you both to know that." There was a long silence after she finished speaking. Marcus's face was unreadable, his eyes never leaving hers. Finally, Tasha stood up. "Well," she said quietly, "that's the most honest apology I've ever heard." She looked at her brother. "I'm going to go check my mail." When she left, closing the door behind her, Marcus and Olivia were alone. "I don't know what to say," Marcus said finally. "You don't have to say anything," Olivia replied. "I didn't come here expecting forgiveness or a second chance. I just needed to tell you the truth." "Which is?" "That I care about you. That what was happening between us was real for me. Is real for me." She swallowed hard. "But I understand if it's too late." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "I need some time," he said finally. "To think, to be sure." Olivia nodded, her heart sinking even as she understood. "Of course," she said softly. "Take all the time you need." She turned to leave, tears spilling down her cheeks that she didn't wipe away until she reached the sidewalk below. The days that followed were some of the longest of Olivia's life. She threw herself into work, focusing on hotel operations and trying not to think about Marcus. She failed at the latter, her thoughts returning to him no matter how busy she kept herself. She was gentler with the staff, more patient with guests. The shame of her past behavior pushed her to be better, to see people more clearly, to listen more carefully. Several times she picked up her phone to call or text Marcus, but always stopped herself. He had asked for time. The least she could do was give him that. Meanwhile, Victor processed Marcus's resignation, assigning another security officer to fill his position temporarily. The hotel ran smoothly, investors were satisfied, life went on. But for Olivia, something essential was missing. Marcus spent that week recovering, both physically and emotionally. His shoulder was healing well. Tasha made sure of that, putting him through daily exercises that left him sore but stronger. His heart was another matter. He missed Olivia more than he had expected to. Her apology had been sincere and vulnerable, touching him deeply. But he was wary of rushing back into something that might hurt them both. He jogged by the river each morning, slowly, building back his strength. In the quietness of those early runs, with the sun rising over the water, he thought about what he wanted, what he was willing to risk. One afternoon, his phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "No pressure. I'm here." He read it several times, then put the phone away without responding. But the message stayed with him, a reminder that she was giving him the space he'd asked for while letting him know she hadn't changed her mind. By the end of the week, Marcus had made his decision. He wasn't going to let fear, his or hers or anyone else's, stop him from pursuing what might be the most real connection he'd ever felt. On Saturday afternoon, he put on casual clothes, jeans, a button-down shirt, clean sneakers, and headed for the Hart Grand Hotel. Olivia was just finishing a meeting with event planners when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Hart, there's someone waiting for you in the lobby." "Who is it?" "Mr. Reed." Olivia's heart skipped. "Marcus?" Her assistant nodded. "He said he'd wait as long as needed." "Thank you. Tell him I'll be right down." She quickly gathered her notes, trying to calm her racing pulse. A week had passed since she'd apologized at his apartment. A week of silence, of waiting, of hoping. What did his presence mean? Had he come to return something? To make a formal goodbye? Or was it something else? Taking a deep breath, Olivia headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, she caught her reflection in the mirrored wall. She looked different somehow, more open, less perfect, more herself. The lobby was busy with weekend guests checking in, tourists asking for directions, staff moving efficiently through the space. And there, standing near the main entrance, was Marcus. He wasn't in his security uniform, just Marcus, in regular clothes, waiting. When he saw her, something in his face lightened. Olivia walked straight to him, not caring who saw or what they might think. All that mattered was that he was here. "Marcus," she said, unable to keep the hope from her voice. "You came." "I did." His eyes were warm, searching hers. "Can we talk? Maybe take a walk?" "Yes," she said immediately. "Let me just grab my purse." They left the hotel together, heading toward the harbor walkway. It was a beautiful late afternoon, the air warm, but not too humid, a light breeze coming off the water. They walked in silence for a few minutes, both gathering their thoughts. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said, about being scared, about caring about me." Olivia nodded, her heart in her throat. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "This, whatever it is between us, it won't be easy. People will have opinions. They'll make assumptions. They'll judge us both." "I know," she said softly. And there are real differences between us. Not just race, but background, experience, expectations, things that matter. Those things do matter, she agreed. But they don't have to keep us apart. Not if we don't let them. Marcus stopped walking, turning to face her directly. If I step back into your life, he said seriously, it's openly. No hiding, no pretending we're just employer and employee. I won't be your secret. Openly, Olivia repeated, the word both a promise and a declaration. She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. I don't want to hide anymore. He squeezed her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. And we take it slow, get to know each other properly, outside of work. Slow is good, she agreed, smiling up at him. I like slow. Something in his face relaxed then, the last of his wariness giving way to a cautious hope. So we're doing this? Really doing this? Yes, Olivia said simply. We are. They continued walking, hand in hand, talking about small things. His physical therapy, her week at the hotel, a book he was reading. Simple, ordinary topics that somehow felt profound because they were sharing them. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the water, Olivia felt a peace she hadn't known in a long time. There were still challenges ahead, still difficult conversations to have and judgments to face. But in this moment, walking beside Marcus, his hand warm in hers, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. 2 days later, the Hart Grand Hotel hosted a small arts event in the lobby, featuring local painters and sculptors. It was a low-key affair, mainly for hotel guests and a few community members, but Olivia had invited Marcus to attend with her. She was nervous as they walked into the lobby together. This would be their first public appearance as... what? A couple? They hadn't put a label on it yet, but they were clearly together. People noticed, of course. There were curious glances, a few whispers. Some of the older guests looked disapproving, while others seemed merely surprised. The staff were professional but watchful, wondering how to navigate this new dynamic. Olivia took a deep breath and did what she would normally do. Greeted guests, discussed the artwork, made introductions. The only difference was that when she came to Marcus, she said simply, "This is Marcus Reed, someone very important to me." The words hung in the air for a moment. Then the conversation continued, the moment passed, and the world didn't end. Some people looked uncomfortable, others smiled warmly. Life went on. Later in the evening, Olivia spotted her mother entering the lobby. She tensed, uncertain how Evelyn would react to seeing her and Marcus together publicly. Evelyn made her way through the crowd, greeting guests with practiced charm. When she reached Olivia and Marcus, she hesitated only briefly before extending her hand to Marcus. "Mr. Reed," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "How is your shoulder healing?" "Much better, thank you, Mrs. Hart," he replied, shaking her hand. "I'm glad to hear it." She turned to Olivia. "The event looks lovely, darling. Well done." It wasn't an enthusiastic endorsement of their relationship, but it was civil, polite, a start. After her mother moved on, Olivia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "That went better than I expected," she murmured. Marcus smiled slightly. "Baby steps." As the event wound down, guests began to leave, heading to dinner or up to their rooms. Olivia and Marcus drifted out to the courtyard, where soft lights illuminated the fountain and flower beds. A few other couples strolled the paths or sat on benches, enjoying the mild evening. Olivia hesitated only a moment before reaching for Marcus's hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years rather than days. She felt eyes on them, hotel staff, a few lingering guests, her mother watching from inside. But for once, she didn't care. This was her choice, her life, and it felt right. Marcus seemed to sense her thoughts. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Olivia looked up at him, at the face that had become so dear to her in such a short time. "Better than okay," she said, and meant it. They walked slowly through the courtyard, hand in hand, talking softly. It was a simple moment, ordinary in many ways. But for Olivia, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. The morning sun filtered through the trees lining the hotel sidewalk. Olivia stood just inside the glass doors, watching as guests came and went. Her mind wasn't on the hotel business today, though. She was thinking about Marcus. 2 days had passed since the arts event, since she'd publicly held his hand and introduced him as someone important to her. Those small actions had set off ripples throughout the hotel. Staff whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. A few regular guests had given her curious looks. One older couple had even canceled their standing reservation for Thanksgiving weekend. Olivia found that she cared less than she'd expected. What mattered more was the text she'd received from Marcus that morning. "Free this afternoon, want to talk. I'll stop by around 2. Now it was nearly time, and her stomach fluttered with a mix of excitement and nervousness. What did he want to talk about? They'd agreed to take things slow, to get to know each other outside of work. Was he having second thoughts? Her thoughts scattered as the doors opened and Marcus walked in. He wasn't in his security uniform. He hadn't been back to work since his resignation, but wore jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt that made his dark skin glow in the sunlight. He looked good, healthy. His arm was out of the sling, though he still moved it carefully. When he saw her, he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and made Olivia's heart skip. She walked straight to him, no longer concerned about who might be watching. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi yourself." His voice was warm. "Got time for a walk?" "For you. Always." They left the hotel, heading toward the waterfront path where they'd walked before. The day was pleasantly warm, with a light breeze carrying the scent of salt water. "How's the shoulder?" Olivia asked as they walked. "Better. Tasha's pushing me hard with the PT." He rotated his arm carefully. "Almost full range of motion now." "That's great." They reached the harbor walkway, where sailboats bobbed gently in their slips and seagulls called overhead. For a while, they just walked in comfortable silence, enjoying being together. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I've been thinking about us, about what this means." Olivia's heart thumped. "And?" He stopped walking, turning to face her. "I don't want to be your employee anymore, Olivia. If I'm going to be in your life, I want it to be as your partner. Not your bodyguard, not your staff. Just me, Marcus." Relief and joy washed through her. "That's what I want too," she said softly. "It won't be easy," he warned. "People will talk. They already are." "Let them," Olivia said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "I'm done living for other people's approval." Marcus smiled, reaching for her hand. "Then we do this openly. No hiding, no pretending, just us, figuring things out together." "Openly," Olivia repeated, squeezing his hand. The word felt like a promise, a declaration. They continued walking, hand in hand, talking about simple things. His family in Charleston, her college years in Boston, favorite books and movies, places they'd like to visit someday. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, as if they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. As they rounded a curve in the path, they passed an older couple walking the other way. The man and woman glanced at their joined hands, then at their faces. The woman's eyes widened slightly in recognition. She was a regular at the hotel. She nudged her husband, who frowned. Olivia felt Marcus's hand tighten slightly in hers. She squeezed back, a silent reassurance. They kept walking, heads high. "That will happen," Marcus said quietly after the couple had passed. "More often than you might think." "I know," Olivia replied. "I'm ready for it." And she was, she realized. Ready to face the stares, the whispers, the disapproval. Ready to stand by the man whose quiet strength and dignity had shown her a better version of herself. As they headed back toward the hotel, Olivia felt lighter somehow, as if a weight she'd carried for years had finally been lifted. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, openly and honestly. 2 days later, Olivia hosted a small arts fundraiser in the hotel's Palm Room. It was a more formal event than the gallery showing earlier in the week, with wealthy donors and community leaders in attendance. She'd invited Marcus, of course, not as security, but as her guest, her date. He arrived right on time, looking handsome in a charcoal suit and blue tie. When Olivia greeted him at the entrance, she didn't hesitate before leaning up to kiss his cheek. "You look beautiful," he murmured, taking in her simple blue dress. "So do you," she replied with a smile. As they entered the room together, conversations paused briefly. Eyes turned their way, assessing, curious. Olivia slipped her hand into Marcus's, drawing strength from his steady presence. "Ms. Hart?" called an older woman from across the room. "Mrs. Whitaker, one of the hotel's oldest and wealthiest regular guests." "So lovely to see you, dear." "Mrs. Whitaker?" Olivia smiled, leading Marcus over to her. "Thank you for coming tonight. I'd like you to meet Marcus Reed." The woman's eyes moved from Olivia to Marcus, then to their joined hands. Her smile faltered slightly but remained in place. "Mr. Reed," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "A pleasure." "The pleasure is mine, ma'am," Marcus replied smoothly. "I hear you've been coming to the Hart Grand for nearly 30 years. You must have seen it change quite a bit." Mrs. Whitaker's eyebrows rose slightly, perhaps surprised by his easy conversation. "Indeed I have, young man. I remember when Olivia's grandfather ran the place. He'd be quite interested in all the changes happening these days." The comment held a veiled criticism, but Olivia refused to rise to the bait. "Grandpa always said the hotel had to evolve with the times," she said pleasantly. "He was quite progressive for his day." The conversation continued for a few more minutes, Mrs. Whitaker gradually warming to Marcus's genuine interest in her stories about the hotel's history. By the time they moved on to greet other guests, the older woman's smile had become more genuine. "Well handled," Olivia murmured as they walked away. Marcus shrugged. "Just being myself. That's all I can do." Throughout the evening, they moved through the crowd together, sometimes separating to speak with different guests, but always finding their way back to each other. Some people were openly curious, others politely distant. A few seemed genuinely happy to see Olivia with someone who made her smile. Near the end of the event, Olivia spotted her mother across the room, deep in conversation with the mayor. Evelyn looked up, catching her daughter's eye. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded slightly in Marcus's direction. It wasn't approval, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Acceptance, perhaps, that this was happening whether she fully understood it or not. Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Her mother's respect mattered to her, even if she was learning to live without her approval. Later, as guests began to leave, Marcus found Olivia near the terrace doors. "Successful night?" he asked. "Very. We raised almost 20,000 for the children's art program." "That's great." He hesitated, then added, "Your mother spoke to me earlier." Olivia tensed slightly. "Oh, what did she say?" "She thanked me for saving your life." His voice was gentle. "And said that if I was going to be in your life, she'd like to get to know me better." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. It was more than she'd hoped for from her mother. Did she really? Marcus nodded. Baby steps, remember? As the last guests departed, Olivia and Marcus stood in the quiet, empty room. Staff moved discreetly, clearing glasses and rearranging furniture. Outside, the stars were appearing in the darkening sky. "Walk me out?" Marcus asked. They headed through the lobby and out into the courtyard, where the fountain burbled softly and tiny lights twinkled in the trees. A few hotel guests strolled the paths, enjoying the mild evening. Without hesitation, Olivia slipped her hand into Marcus's. His fingers wrapped around hers, warm and secure. They walked slowly, savoring the peaceful moment after the busy event. A young couple passed them, smiling in that way people do when they see others in love. An older man on a bench looked up from his book, his eyes lingering on their joined hands for a moment before returning to his reading. No shocked stares, no whispered comments. Just ordinary people going about their evening, while Olivia and Marcus did the same. "This is nice," Olivia said softly. "Just being." Marcus squeezed her hand. "It is." They reached the entrance to the garden, where Marcus's car waited at the curb. Neither was ready for the evening to end. "Have dinner with me tomorrow?" Marcus asked. "At my place. Tasha's working late, so it would just be us." "I'd like that," Olivia said. "What time?" 7? I make a decent pasta." 7 it is." He leaned down, gently kissing her cheek. "Good night, Olivia." "Good night, Marcus." As she watched him drive away, Olivia touched her cheek where his lips had been. It was such a simple gesture, that kiss. But it held more genuine affection than any of the calculated embraces she'd shared with Grant or other men she'd dated. She returned to the hotel, her steps light, her heart full. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly hopeful about the future. The week flew by in a flurry of hotel business and quiet evenings with Marcus. They had dinner at his place, then at hers. They walked by the river, talking for hours. They were learning each other, piece by piece, story by story. Every day, they grew more comfortable together. Every day, the world seemed a little more accepting of them as a couple. There were still moments of tension, of course. A snide comment overheard in the hotel restaurant. A business associate who suddenly became too busy for meetings. Grant, spreading rumors that Marcus was using Olivia for her money and position. But there were good moments too. Victor's quiet support. Tasha, gradually warming to Olivia, sharing embarrassing stories about Marcus as a kid. Even Evelyn, making a visible effort to be welcoming when Marcus came to Sunday brunch. By the following weekend, when Marcus invited Olivia to his apartment for a game night with Tasha, it felt completely natural. This was becoming her world too. His modest apartment, his close relationship with his sister, the neighborhood, where children played on the sidewalk and neighbors called greetings from their porches. Olivia arrived early, a fresh casserole in hand. She was getting better at cooking, with practice, and a bottle of wine under her arm. Tasha opened the door, her smile genuinely warm now. "Come in," she said, taking the casserole. "He's setting up the game. Fair warning, he cheats at Monopoly." "I do not," Marcus called from the living room. Olivia laughed, following Tasha inside. The apartment felt different now, familiar, comfortable. Marcus looked up from the game board on the coffee table, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Hey, you," he said, standing to greet her. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," she replied, leaning up to kiss him lightly. It was such a simple, domestic scene, a Saturday evening, a board game, a home-cooked meal warming in the oven. But for Olivia, who had grown up in hotel suites and formal dining rooms, it felt wonderfully new and precious. They ate at the small kitchen table, the casserole complemented by a salad Tasha had made, and bread Marcus had picked up from the bakery down the street. The conversation flowed easily, full of laughter and teasing and comfortable silences. After dinner, they settled in the living room for the promised game of Monopoly. Tasha, it turned out, was the real threat, ruthlessly buying properties and building hotels until both Olivia and Marcus were nearly bankrupt. "I surrender," Marcus finally said, tossing his last few dollars on the table. "You're a shark, sis." "Always have been," Tasha grinned. "Remember when we were kids and I owned the entire board?" "How could I forget? You were 10 and already a real estate mogul." Olivia watched them, enjoying their easy sibling dynamic. It was something she'd never experienced as an only child, this comfortable back and forth built on a lifetime of shared memories. "I should go check on Mrs. Hernandez's cat," Tasha said, standing and stretching. "She's out of town, and I promised to feed him tonight." After she left, Marcus and Olivia moved to the couch, sitting close together in comfortable silence. Through the window, they could see the quiet street, a few neighbors sitting on their stoops, enjoying the mild evening. "This is nice," Olivia said softly. "Being here with you, with Tasha, it feels right." Marcus nodded, his arm around her shoulders. "It does." She rested her head against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I've been thinking," she said, "about everything that's happened, how we got here. And I keep coming back to that first day, when I said that awful thing about not trusting a black man with my life." She looked up at him. "I'm still so sorry for that." "I know," he said gently. "I forgave you a long time ago." "But why? How could you forgive something like that?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering. "Because you owned it," he said finally. "You didn't make excuses or try to explain it away. You recognized the harm and took responsibility." "That's rare, Olivia. Most people don't have that kind of courage." She shook her head slightly. "It doesn't feel like courage. It feels like the very least I could do." "That's why it matters," he said simply. Olivia thought about that, about the journey they'd been on since that first painful mistake, about how owning her words had been the first step toward something real between them. "When I saw you get shot," she said quietly, "when I thought I might lose you before I ever really knew you, something changed in me. I realized how empty my life had been, how much I'd been hiding from myself." Marcus touched her cheek gently. "We all hide sometimes. It's human." "But you've been brave all along," she said. "Standing tall in a world that doesn't always see you clearly, never hiding who you are." "Not brave," he corrected. "Just stubborn and tired of being invisible." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the distant sounds of the neighborhood. Children laughing, a car passing, someone playing music from an open window. Finally, Olivia spoke again, her voice soft but sure. "I trust you, Marcus. All of you." He tightened his arm around her. "All of me, all of you," he replied, his voice warm with emotion. In that moment, in that simple exchange, something settled between them. A foundation laid, a promise made without grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Just two people, seeing each other clearly and choosing to build something real together. Later that evening, they sat on the stoop outside Marcus's building, watching the quiet street. The night air was cool but pleasant, stars visible between the buildings overhead. Olivia leaned against Marcus's shoulder, their hands intertwined. She felt a peace she'd never known before. Not the carefully controlled calm she'd once mistaken for happiness, but a deep, genuine contentment. "What are you thinking?" Marcus asked softly. "That I'm happy," she replied honestly. That this, us, feels like the most real thing I've ever known. He squeezed her hand. Me too. Will it always be this way? She wondered. People looking, judging, making assumptions? Probably, he said. To some degree, but it gets easier, and the people who matter, they see us for who we really are. Olivia nodded, thinking of Tasha's growing warmth toward her, of Victor's steady support, of her mother's small steps toward acceptance. I'm not afraid anymore, she realized aloud. Not of what people think, not of making mistakes, not even of how much I care about you. Marcus turned to look at her, his eyes warm in the dim light from the street lamps. That's the bravest thing of all, he said, being unafraid to love. The word hung between them, unspoken but understood. Love. That's what this was becoming, had perhaps been from the moment he stepped in front of that bullet for her. Not because of the dramatic gesture, but because in that moment they had both revealed their true selves, his instinct to protect, her capacity for remorse and change. I'm glad you came back to the hotel that day, Olivia said, after you resigned. I almost didn't, he admitted. I was scared too. What changed your mind? He was quiet for a moment, thinking. I realized that what was growing between us was worth the risk, that I'd rather try and fail than wonder what might have been. Olivia nodded, understanding completely. Worth the risk, she repeated softly. Yes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching a cat slink along the fence across the street, listening to the distant sounds of the city. There was no need to fill the quiet with words. They had time now to talk, to learn each other, to grow together. The future stretched before them, uncertain but full of possibility. There would be challenges, of course. More raised eyebrows, more whispers, more judgments. Family tensions to navigate, different worlds to bridge. But sitting here, hand in hand under a sky full of stars, none of that seemed insurmountable. They had found something rare and precious, a connection built on honesty, respect, and the courage to be seen fully. As the night grew cooler, they remained on the stoop, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Plans for the week ahead, a movie they wanted to see, the struggling plant on Marcus's windowsill, which was finally showing new growth thanks to Olivia's care. Small, ordinary topics. The stuff of everyday life, of relationships built to last. Not the dramatic rescue or the hospital vigil or the public statement, but the quiet, steady moments in between. The real love story. When Olivia finally rose to leave, Marcus walked her to her car, his hand warm in hers. I'll call you tomorrow, he said, leaning down to kiss her gently. I'll be waiting, she replied. As she drove away, Olivia glanced in the rear-view mirror. Marcus stood on the sidewalk, watching her go, his figure illuminated by the street lamp. Not her bodyguard anymore, but her partner, her future. In the quiet of her car, Olivia smiled. The journey hadn't been easy or straightforward. There had been hurt and healing, mistakes and forgiveness, fear and courage. But here they were, finding their way together. Building a love based not on fantasy or convenience, but on seeing each other truly and choosing each other anyway. A love strong enough to face whatever came next because it was built on the strongest foundation of all: respect, courage, and the willingness to be seen. The road ahead might not be smooth, but they would walk it together, hand in hand, eyes open, hearts brave. And that, Olivia knew with certainty, was more than enough.